I can see where you're coming from. I have had both types of reviewers in the past. I've had those that I felt like were a great mentor, a great teacher. Instead of blasting me for doing it wrong, they taught me how to do it right, and I've been thankful for those. I've also had the other side, as you talked about, I thought were out to get me. And I can tell you where I learned more.
Originating from deep inside the Rocky Mountains, transported through the power of the internet, and arriving inside your tiny earbuds. It's the Appraiser Coach Podcast, helping appraisers increase their efficiency, quality, and make more money. Here's the guy who makes it his life's mission to create value for real estate appraisers nationwide. Your host and the Appraiser Coach, Dustin Harris.
Welcome back to the program, everybody. Dustin Harris hanging out in the podcast chair. I want to pause and remind you that we are sponsored by three great companies. Of course, we're sponsored by Alamode. Alamode is the service that I've been using for years and years and years to help me to complete better appraisal reports. Can help you to do the same thing. Check them out. Go to alamode.com for more information or pick up the phone and call them at 800-ALAMODE. Datamaster is the way that you can save 30 to 60 minutes per report. And Datamaster 6, of course, is rolling out across the country right now. Check them out by going to datamasterusa.com. Again, it's Datamaster, and then you got to add USA, as in United States of America.com. Finally, we are sponsored by Working RE. Working RE is the place that I have been going to get a lot of education lately. You should be as well. Go to Working RE, as in workingrealestate.com. One more time, it's workingre.com. I want to welcome back to the program good friend of mine, smart man, USPAP instructor, MAI. What more can I say, Tim? Mr. Tim Andersen's back with us.
Justin, hi. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you. As always, I appreciate it. My best to your family and all the listeners.
Thank you. I appreciate that, my friend. I appreciate you being on here. As you know, Tim, you and I get a lot of questions, mostly you, but for some reason it comes through me. I guess they either think I know something or they think I have an in with Mr. Tim Andersen, but on a pretty regular basis, we get questions over the email or over Facebook regarding USPAP issues. And of course, I am wise enough to know that I am not wise. And wise enough to know that I need to look for experts when it comes to these types of questions. And so we have created and have been doing this series for quite a long time on the podcast called Dear USPAP Instructor. And any listener of this podcast can reach out on a regular basis. They can either email myself, the coach at theappraisercoach.com, or they can email Tim directly, which is tim@theuspapexpert.com. Again, tim@theuspapexpert.com. With any question that you have concerning USPAP, and we will usually address them right away with you privately in an email, and then with your permission, we will talk about them online. Typically not including names, but the question I think is applicable. Tim, a long time ago as I was teaching junior high, I was taught that if somebody raises their hand and has a question and they're brave enough to ask the question, that typically there's others in the classroom that have the same question that weren't so brave. And so that's one of the reasons that we do this episode, because the questions, I think, are applicable to all appraisers. So welcome back to the program. Thank you for your time, Tim.
Justin, Shirley, it's great to be back in seventh grade again.
All right. Let's dive right in. The first question on the table. I don't know if I'm going to read it word for word. There's some strong language in here, Tim. This is a family program, but basically this individual had been appraising for 20 years. He recently got criticized by a reviewer who basically on a single family home, I assume this was a 1004, had left out the income approach. And his question is, the reviewer responded by saying it was a USPAP requirement to use all three approaches, even if two of them were not really applicable. Help, what does USPAP say on this, and how can I respond to this particular reviewer? What say you?
Okay. Well, first of all, the reviewer's an idiot.
Okay.
The USPAP does not require an appraiser to go through the protocols of a useless approach. For example, how dumb would it be to go through the protocols of the income approach for vacant land? Now, it's true, vacant land under certain circumstances does generate an income. Mm-hmm. But for what the typical residential real estate appraiser does typically in an assignment, that would be an exercise in futility. So it would be dumb.
As with the cost approach or something like that.
Yeah, as with the cost approach, exactly. So the reviewer saying, "Oh, you've got to go through all three approaches, even if one of them or two of them is irrelevant," is dumb because
Okay.
USPAP does not say that. Now, not to defend the reviewer, because as most everybody knows, reviewers are basically the pawn scum of Satan. Uh, what
You wonder why I have you on the program, Tim. I mean, you just say it as it is.
as someone who does a lot of reviews, yeah, I have been called worse, Dustin. Now, USPAP does say, dear, sweet, kind, gentle appraiser, if you are going to leave out an approach, go ahead and leave it out. That's part of your scope of work, which is completely within your purview to choose. However, if you're going to leave one out, you must not only state that you have left one out, but you must explain why you chose to leave it out. In other words, you would not merely say, I left out, for example, the cost approach. I left out the cost approach because it's not relevant. Okay, why is it not relevant? Is the house nothing but circles? In other words, there are no right angles anywhere in it. Is it 75,000 square feet? Is it on 6 levels? I mean, what is it? Why did you leave out the cost approach? Oh, if you don't want to do it, leave it out. That's your choice. I happen to think the cost approach is a superb analytical tool, but that's okay. I believe in aliens. But if you're gonna leave an approach out, leave it out. Your choice. But then explain why you left it out, not merely that you left it out.
Okay.
And no, the reviewer was not justified in saying that to you. It's never the reviewer's position to humiliate the appraiser. That's the appraiser's spouse's job. It's the reviewer's job to say, look, this does not conform to USPAP. Please make it conform. Now, if I may get on my soapbox for a moment, and I know you hate it when I do that.
Please do.
The original purpose of a standard 3 and now a standard 3-4 review was to make an appraisal and report better. It was to make it clearer. It was to make it comply with USPAP. It was to make it internally consistent. In other words, it was somebody saying, here, I can help you. Let me show you what you need to do to make this a better appraisal. Somehow, it has turned into a gotcha. And that's exactly what happens. You get this review back, and the reviewer says, you did this wrong, and you did that wrong, and you're ugly, and your mother dresses you funny, and I'm going to turn this into the report because you did this wrong, and you did that wrong, and you're ugly, and your mother dresses you funny. And that was never the purpose of a review. And it's a shame that that's exactly what it has degenerated into.
Okay.
Now, what you do as a coach, Dustin, is what you're supposed to do. You say, guys, here, let me help you. That's what that's all a review was ever supposed to do. And the fact that it doesn't is indeed, in my opinion, and Dustin, you know I have very few opinions, is in my opinion an indictment on our industry.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I can see where you're coming from. I have had both types of reviewers in the past. I've had those that I felt like were a great mentor, a great teacher. Instead of blasting me for doing it wrong, they taught me how to do it right, and I've been thankful for those. I've also had the other side, as you talked about, I thought were out to get me. And I can tell you where I learned more. So let's go back to this question for just a second, just make sure I understand completely. USPAP does not require all 3 approaches to value, but it does require, specifically says, if you leave out one or more of the approaches, that you need to explain not just that you left it out, but as you talked about, why you left it out. How detailed do we need to be on the why?
As detailed as necessary. There is no stock answer to that question. To say I left out the cost approach is fine in and of itself, but now there needs to be an explanation. And I submit to you that the explanation needs to invoke the fact that you at least went through the cost approach on a quick and dirty basis. Okay. And it didn't tell you anything that the sales comparison approach didn't or wouldn't have told you. And that type of explanation is what is what USPAP contemplates in requiring an explanation. It doesn't require chapters 4 through 7 of War and Peace.
Mm-hmm.
It requires a couple of paragraphs, maybe one paragraph with a few sentences saying, I left it out because after doing it, I determined that it was really not relevant because it didn't tell me anything the sales comparison approach wouldn't have told me.
Do you feel, and just to make sure I understand completely, do you feel like even on a quick and dirty basis, if it's very obvious, I mean, let's go back to the hypothetical that we used earlier, vacant piece of ground. I don't think I need to go through the cost approach on a quick and dirty basis to realize that there's going to be no benefit in going through the cost approach on a vacant piece of ground.
No, the explanation there would be I didn't do the cost approach because the subject property is vacant land to which the cost approach does not apply, period, new sentence.
Okay. Awesome. We're talking with Tim Andersen. This is Ask the Appraiser, or Dear USPAP Instructor, rather. And we will come back with another question. But first, want to pause here and remind you that we are sponsored by 3 great companies. You know, I'll tell you, folks, every single day I am grateful for a la mode. Every single day I am in appraisal reports and I'm typing away. And I think sometimes I take for granted some of the great tools that are there in the a la mode program. Tools that allow me to be mobile. Tools that allow me to be able to do more with less. Folks, the other day I had a driver. I was very busy. I had lots of inspections and I had lots of downtime between inspections. Instead of looking at the road, I typed up appraisal reports while I was driving. So I hired a young man who drove me around and I was able to get quite a bit done. And the reason is because Alamo does allow you a laptop version of the appraisal software, so that you can use that at home or in other places. And I took advantage of that and downloaded Zaps to my laptop. And even when I did not have an internet connection, I was able to get quite a bit done in the car. Folks, these are just some of the things that a la mode will do for you. It's all about efficiency. It's all about effectiveness. It's all about being able to do the things that you need to do as an appraiser. A la mode understands that. Check them out. Go to alamode.com, or you can pick up the phone and call them at 800 a la mode. We're sponsored by Working RE Magazine. Had an opportunity recently to complete some online education through Working RE. Tell you what, folks, this is top-notch, high technology stuff and great information. If you have not been to Working RE lately, I encourage you to do so. When you get there, after about a few seconds, you'll have a pop-up box come. And I know those can be annoying, but trust me, folks, this is one you're going to want to pay attention to. You simply have to put an email address in there, and then on a regular basis, you will get information about the appraisal world, about the appraisal profession, about the things that you care about. Working RE is very careful about the emails that they send out, and most of them are really, really good information that you will want. It's free. You can check it out by going to workingre.com. One more time, it's workingre.com. Just got off the phone last week with Mr. Rick Liffrith. He is out of Utah, and you may know he is the founder and the president, the CEO, if you will, of DataMaster. DataMaster is the software that cares about appraisers and their efficiency. DataMaster will save you 30 to 60 minutes per report. And I'll tell you, folks, I can't go into the details about the conversation because it is a private conversation, but I will tell you this. The come away that I had in talking to Rick was a reminder that this is a man who cares about appraisers. This is a company who you could call it a family-owned company. It is a small company in the sense that you can talk to a real person when you call, but it's a big enough company that they are doing some great good in the world of appraisers and allowing you to be able to insert data directly into your report. Whether you use a la mode or another software, it will allow you to import the taxes, the tax information, the legal description, the owner name, the actual tax amount, the MC sheet, the top of the grid on page 2, the grid itself, comps at a touch of a button. This is an efficiency machine. And you need to check it out. Go to datamasterusa.com. One more time, it's datamasterusa.com. Welcome back to the program. Once again, dear USPAP instructor, Mr. Tim Andersen is on the line. Welcome back, Tim.
Destin, thank you. It is great to be back. I appreciate the opportunity.
Well, I just want to shout out, give a shout out to you, Tim. You do this absolutely free of charge, the goodness of your heart, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. And just the time that you spend here answering questions for appraisers. You've had a good long life in the appraisal profession. You've learned a great deal, and I, for one, am very grateful for the knowledge that you share freely with the appraisers here on the podcast.
Destin, you make that sound like a eulogy. Have you been speaking with my doctors?
We're prepared, my friend. We're prepared.
No, Dustin, it's an honor to be able to help out. And because you have done so many kind, professional, private things for me, therefore it is an honor to be able to return the favor.
Well, that's very kind of you. I want to take the time and just shout out that as you have had a great life, again, I don't want this to sound like a eulogy, but I do want to give a little bit of credentials here that you've been an MAI, you have been an excellent appraiser, you have reviewed for years, and you've helped appraisers who might be dealing with some challenging situations with USPAP, with state boards, with a variety of different things. And that's one of the services, paid services, I might point out, that you provide. If appraisers need to reach out to you and get some coaching and some mentoring on how to handle some sticky situations, how do they do so?
Destin, my email address, I have two. As you indicated earlier, one of them is tim@theuspapexpert.com. The other one is tim@theappraisersadvocate.com. And then my phone number is area code 561-635-5265.
Perfect. And I know that I have talked to many appraisers who have reached out to you after they had talked to you, and never an unsatisfied customer. So thank you, Tim, for your help and your services there. Okay.
Destin, it's an honor. Thank you.
Okay, let's dive into the next and final question for today. This is concerning an appraiser who reached out and had a question about, for lack of a better term, he didn't use this term, but I think we're going to be talking about competency here. So he has an opportunity to appraise a single-family residence, and he said, I'm very comfortable with my ability to appraise this house. However, this house has a location situation. It sits across the street from an operating sewer treatment plant. And he said, I'm comfortable with the house. I may not be so comfortable with the location. What do you suggest, Tim? Should he or should he not accept this type of an assignment?
Oh, yeah, this is not a particularly difficult assignment. The first characteristic that we'd look for in an assignment like this is comparables near the sewer plant.
Okay.
Assuming they're near the sewer plant, then whatever influence the sewer plant exerts is baked into the sales. Therefore, there would be no particular adjustment if they're all, within, I don't know, 2 blocks of the sewer plant, 3 blocks of the sewer plant, or they're all downwind from the sewer plant, or they're all upwind from the sewer plant. Then there really isn't going to be that much of a problem. The problem is going to come if there are no comps in the immediate area. And quite frankly, given the proximity to a negative influences such as this one, there may not be a lot of comps, because I don't think it's a stretch to say this is probably not the most popular neighborhood in town. But that's okay. That doesn't mean we can't appraise it. That doesn't mean that it suffers from any particular stigma, because everybody knows it's there. So if you couldn't find a comparable property in the same neighborhood, your next step would be to find a property with, for example, just any negative influence. Now, you say, well, great, how do you prove a negative influence? Well, I consulted a number of years ago with an appraiser down in the Keys, Florida Keys, and he had been asked to appraise a property near a cell tower, specifically for tax assessment protest purposes, because this particular owner was convinced that living essentially at the base of a cell tower hurt his property value. So the appraiser said, okay, what is it we're going to do? How are we going to do this? I said, well, let's find 10 sales of properties near cell towers and 10 sales of properties not near 10 cell towers. And assuming that that's the only significant difference, let's see if there's a problem. And we did. And what we found was there might not have been a problem. Let's face it, it doesn't make any noise. It doesn't give off any odor. There aren't a lot of lights on it.
But it does give you cancer, according to my
Well,
mother-in-law.
okay, yeah, but other than that, okay, so do a lot of things. But and of course, I'm being tongue in cheek
Me too.
about that. You couldn't see me, but I had my tongue in my cheek. What we found out was it probably didn't make that much difference. One of the things that I found out doing some work down in Key West is if you were located across the street from the Key West main cemetery, your property had a premium. For some reason, people wanted to live across the street from the Key West municipal cemetery because apparently it's party central, but that's another subject entirely. So first of all, you've got to determine that living near an operating sewer plant is a problem. It may not be. And again, it won't be if your comps come from that same neighborhood. If they don't, then you're going to be looking for comps that are next to a negative influence. And for lack of a better negative influence, let's just say a house located on a busy road versus a house a block away that's not located on a busy road. Chances are the only difference there would be in site value. But then what you would do is you would look at the differences in the site value. Now you say, you mean I have to go and appraise 10 houses to extract the site value? Well, yeah, that's one way to do it. An easier way to do it would be to look at the tax assessments and just look at the difference in the tax assessment. And if there was a 7% difference because of that location, then you would apply that adjustment to your properties, explaining where you got the adjustment and why you chose to use that particular set of comps to account for the quote unquote bad location. There is no such thing as a bad location, just because there's no such thing as a good location. There is merely a positive location or a negative location. Bad implies the fact that the location has somehow garnered the ability to make ethical choices, which I sincerely doubt is possible. Some human beings can't make ethical choices, much less land. So again, Dustin, what you're looking for is obviously, ideally, would be property close to a sewer plant versus a property not close to a sewer plant. But you could use just about any adverse influence as a comparison, as an analog, in order to calculate that particular difference. So if this particular appraiser is comfortable appraising the house itself, the adjustment for proximity to the sewer plant may not exist, quite frankly, if that's where the comps come from. If the comps don't, and assuming that the comparables are otherwise truly comparable, then it's not going to be difficult to find a property with an adverse influence versus essentially the same property without that adverse influence, and use the difference as the adjustment for the proximity or lack of proximity to the sewer plant.
Okay, I want to go down to, I just want to dig a little bit deeper on two different issues here. First of all, let's talk about location, because Tim, I'm humble enough to tell you that you taught me something a few years ago that I think I had wrong for a lot of my career. And that was the difference between a locational issue and an external obsolescence. And based on what you have told me or taught me, we're not talking about an external obsolescence issue being across from a sewer plant. Am I right?
In and of itself, that is not an external issue. Let's go back. Imagine the 1004 form. Mm-hmm. If you look at the three forms of depreciation, physical, functional, and external, you'll note that they apply solely to the improvements. Okay. Whatever you kick out for external does not come out of the site value. And the reason is, by definition, the site does not depreciate. In other words, after 100 years, you don't have to dig the site up and replace it. It's the dirt's the dirt. It's always going to be there. It's always been there. It's always going to be there. So because it can't wear out, and because depreciation applies solely to the improvements, that is not an external obsolescence. It's a locational problem. I concede that point. But it is not, by definition, an external obsolescence, because depreciation applies solely to the improvements. Land can't wear out. It cannot depreciate. Therefore, external obsolescence does not apply to it.
Can you give me an example of an external obsolescence issue?
Sure. Let's suppose that you have a house on a road, just your basic, typical road.
Mm-hmm.
And the state comes along and says, okay, we're going to tear the road up because it's Tuesday and the governor's having a bad hair day. And it's going to be torn up for a year. All right. That's
Mm-hmm.
going to affect your access to the property.
Sure.
It's probably going to affect, you're going to probably spend more money cleaning your house because of the dirt and the dust. You got to put up with the noise and the crap like that. Whoops. Can I say crap?
That's okay on this program.
Stuff like that. Okay. And so that would be an external obsolescence. Now you say, well, that's going to go away after a year. You're right. It is. That's one of the hallmarks of an external obsolescence. It goes away usually by itself. Let's look back at 2004. The market was hot. Let's look at 2008. The market was not. Okay. The only difference was the fact that the economy collapsed.
Mm-hmm.
That's an external obsolescence. Houses didn't wear out any faster. It's just that nobody wanted to buy them. That was the external obsolescence factor. And therefore you said, well, typically this would be a $300,000 house, but nobody's buying houses because the economy has collapsed. Therefore, if you want to sell this house, you want to sit on it, it's a $300,000 house. If you want to sell it because you're moving to Tahiti because you like Tahiti, then it's a $150,000 house. And that difference is the external obsolescence factor.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Great explanation. Okay, the other thing I want to do before we wrap up is talk about competency in general. You've been specifically addressing this individual's question about being across from a sewer plant, but let's go broader. Let's pull away from the trees a little bit and get above the forest and talk to me about when an assignment comes over and you feel maybe competent with the house itself, but you don't feel competent with the location, or you feel confident with the location, but not necessarily the house. Maybe it's an octagon house, maybe it's a berm house or something like that you've not done before. What should an appraiser do in that situation where they're being pushed, if you will, by their client to say, hey man, we really like you, you're a great appraiser, we really need somebody, we've gone to 3 other appraisers, they won't accept this, we really need you to do this, name your price.
Okay. $25,000.
Okay. And explain.
Now, Dustin, if you've got a reputation as a good appraiser, the best way to keep that reputation is not do anything to sully it. Don't take the job. If you don't know how to appraise a berm house, and by that I'm assuming you mean one that's built mostly underground.
Yeah.
Okay. If you don't know how to appraise that, don't take the job.
Okay.
That's not hard.
Are there other options if you want to please your client, you want to remain USPAP compliant?
Well, remember, the best way to please the client is not to take a job that you're going to bungle, frankly.
Okay.
Now,
what about getting help?
Okay. Now, USPAP says there are 3 ways to become competent. You can either educate yourself into competence, which, while the best way, is the most complex, most expensive, and most time-consuming. The second way would be to hire someone who is competent to do that job on an independent contractor basis and let them do it. Or the third way to do it is hire yourself out on an independent contractor basis to someone who is competent to do it, and then let them mentor you through the process. But just to say, oh, well, I'll bungle through this and I'll find some sales and, that kind of thing, which is what we typically tend to do, could be the step that ruins that sterling reputation. And it could be the step that the client says, well, Dustin, he was pretty good before, but, he really messed us up on this last one. And it took us a long time. We almost lost the loan and we had to come off the interest rate a little bit to keep the borrower happy, and bad reasons 1 through 7. So again, that's why I say, if you're just not comfortable with the job, maybe the best thing you can do is walk away from it and maintain your reputation. A surgeon's a surgeon, but you don't want somebody who specializes in appendectomies, working on your knees.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're just not comfortable appraising that berm house, probably the best thing you can do is walk away.
Love
and
it.
if you can't, then you either educate yourself into competency, you hire yourself into competency, or you hire someone who is competent.
Excellent. Great advice as always, Mr. Tim Andersen. One more time, how do they get a hold of you if they need your help?
Again, my email addresses are tim@theuspapexpert.com and tim@theappraisersadvocate.com. And my phone number is 561-635-5265.
Thank you, Tim. And thank you, listeners. If you have questions that you would like to hear here on the Dear USPAP Instructor episodes, please reach out to Tim or myself. You can reach me at theappraisercoach.com. Thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.
You've been listening to the Appraiser Coach podcast with Dustin Harris. If you like what you hear, please give us a 5-star rating and post a short review on iTunes. For more in-depth insider information on how you can make more money as a real estate appraiser, visit theappraisercoach.com and sign up for the All-Star team today. Thanks for joining us. And now, get out there and create some value.